Let's call this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody, to the Town of Mendon Select Board meeting. If you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any citizen statements or petitions anybody would like to make? All right, hearing none, let's move on to correspondence. We have one letter we received. It's dated on February 20th from Mass Housing. And it was addressed to our interim town administrator in the town. It says, it's my pleasure to inform you that Mendon's planning for housing production funding request to provide pre-development technical assistance to support the creation of affordable housing on a portion of a 60-acre parcel of land located at 75 Providence Street in Mendon has been approved. The goal of the planning for housing production program is to forge new partnerships between Mass Housing and municipalities to meet the Commonwealth's housing challenges. The program seeks to build on locally driven housing planning projects by providing cities and towns with additional technical capacity to implement their housing production vision and deliver new growth in a manner that is consistent with local priorities and needs. We look forward to working with you on your project. On a logistical note, please be advised that this award letter does not act as a contract with Mass Housing for the award specified above. A member of Mass Housing's planning and program staff will contact Jack Hunter, who is our town planner, directly to discuss the specific requirements related to this award, as well as next steps. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please reach out to Monica Pacino, Municipal Technical Assistant Manager, and it gives her phone number and her address. David, do you have anything more you can add to this?
I just signed off on it with Dan.
This has to do with the parcel down on Province Road near the Morrison property. And it's the next step in us. If we want to proceed with it, they're going to help us with creating the plan. So that's good news and good work, everybody. On to number 4. This is probably one of the favorite things we do. We have 3 Eagle Scout citations. If I can ask the 3 new Eagle Scouts to come on up here and sit at the table. So I have 3 citations here for Samuel Abbott, Michael Byrne, and Gianni Mistrella. Did I pronounce that properly? Great. So I'm going to read each one of these, and then I'm going to ask for a motion for all 3, and then we'll present them to each one of you. So the first citation is to Samuel Abbott, and it says, whereas in this era when traditional precepts of faith and morality appear seriously threatened, it's refreshing to find wholesome American young men and women who support and respect our sacred institutions. And whereas the Boy Scouts of America instills teamwork and leadership qualities in young men and women, further promoting the development of strong character, good citizenship, and lasting friendship. And whereas the Boy Scouts of America have made vital contributions to the youth of Mendon through training in the art of living in the great outdoors while building self-reliance. And whereas Scout Abbott earned the minimum of required merit badges, served his troop in a variety of leadership roles, Scout Abbott has completed his Eagle Scout Leadership Service project at the Mendon Town Park by leading the community members in painting, refurbishing 6 aging structures at the Mendon Town Park. The structures included 3 storage sheds, 2 dugouts, and the snack shack. Before painting, all structures were pressure washed and any rotted wood damage was repaired and replaced. The second citation to Michael Byrne. Specifically, whereas Scout Byrne earned the minimum of required merit badges and served his troop in a variety of leadership roles, Scout Byrne has completed his Eagle Scout Leadership Service project through a donation drive for teens in foster care by leading the community members in a donation drive for foster teens in the local southern Worcester County area. The donation drive was conducted between February and June of 2023 and was a project coordinated alongside Rise Above, a charity organization which focuses on supporting foster youth in Massachusetts. And then the third citation for Gianni Mistretta says, whereas Scout Mistretta earned the minimum of required merit badges and served his troop in a variety of leadership roles, Scout Mistretta has completed his Eagle Scout Leadership Service project by renovating the town park outdoor classroom and leading the community members in repairing the outside of the building, replacing outdoor siding and insulation, and painting the building indoors, as well as improving some drainage around the building. The select board of the town of Mendon do hereby provide these citations to these three young men, and I'd be looking for a motion to,
I move to award the Eagle Scout citations to Samuel Abbott, Michael Byrne, and Gianni Mistretta.
Second.
all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Congratulations. For anybody says anything, the left-handed handshake was on purpose because that's what scouts do. All right. Let's move on to the, by the way, would you like to take a group picture? All right, let's just, I'm a little slow on the upkeep sometimes, but why don't you scouts come on up with your parents and your scoutmaster and come up here behind the board? Like, why don't you, grab this flag and just put it right there on the right corner of the stage? Mike.
I don't even know who sits on the select board. Well, Jason. I see Jason.
Do they know that you're there watching?
I don't know.
Do they hear us with your mic on?
Oh,
Can I hear you? Can they hear us?
Right up here on the right side of the stage. Just put it on the corner. If you all want to come up and just get behind us. Stage, if you want, sure, it doesn't matter. We're just gonna stand here in front and then you can stand behind us. Again. I got some. I think we just. You guys want to get in there too? You can, you're family members.
One, two, three. Great, thank you. Elena.
All right, I think, number 5, we have an update for the Senior Center Expansion Committee. Bill, if you want to have you and the other members, as many will fit, come on up here to the table.
About the presentation. Sure. Like honors, he's in. It's like honors, he's in. They'll be right behind us. Yeah, come on.
Tom, there's an extra chair. Come on up.
Come on. Tom always sits back. What can I say? Good.
Thanks again for letting us back. About this time last year, we were looking for some small funding to get some design work going, put some things together. And here we are to give you an update. I put some props up here. I'm not going through them. But that started the process way back when. The senior in action. That's really what I discovered too, since I just went in there and found them. And then we moved along with all the programs we provide. There will be more details in here, and I think you have copies of all this. Then I'll reflect on that one just for a minute. We're coming here to try to go to the town meeting with a proposal to proceed with the building project. That's what tonight's presentation is going to be about. We'll give you a status of how we got here. The architect, Mike and John, are on the way. They got stuck in traffic again. But he did text me. He should be here momentarily, but I can start the presentation here. This is the update for tonight. There's an image of the picture of the proposed building, and we'll talk about that more as we go through with the architect. Next, please. I'd like to take just a quick moment. The team grew since we first met as a group, and we've got a strong organization for the committee. A lot of people have worked on committees before and understand the process much better than I do. And we've got tons of volunteers. We've got some great contractors working for us. And we've got a wide variety of citizens who've worked for the community projects. And it's good to have them all on board. Next. I'm not going to dwell on this, but I just want to step to the point of 28% of the population of Mendon are seniors, or qualify as seniors. And we have over 8,500 occurrences of activities every year. Additionally, we support 150 families with food stamps, food pantry. There's also all sorts of fuel support, other support for veterans, health programs. To watch these people in action go do this thing every day is amazing. What do we need? We ran out of space a long time ago. The building we need to accommodate at least 125 people to satisfy the emergency center that we have. And we can only do 25 to 30 today. The number of people that we turn away at some of our events is really unfortunate. Everything's waitlisted. If you want to go to the veterans program, you can't go there because you don't have enough space. If you want to go to a Valentine's program, you can't go there because there's not enough space.
Excuse me, Phil, are these this the
Oh, yeah,
architect?
come through.
Gentlemen, there's a couple of chairs there on the side if you want to grab and just roll up to the table with everybody else.
Mike and John.
Well, there's two right there.
We'll take one quick moment here. Mike Petrovic, the architect, and his partner, John is over there. John Ramsey. So anyway, you have the packets in front of you. We're not going to drill down this, but there's a lot of need for this, and it even grew more the more I got involved with the project. Next, please. This has been a journey. If you look back, the current building was built probably about 35 years ago, 33, I think. And then 17 years ago, we bolted on a piece on the back. If you count the upstairs and downstairs, it's approximately 4,000, 5,000 square feet, which supports the food pantry and some storage areas. Upstairs is fully furnished. Essentially, there are 2 activity rooms and a small kitchen when you look at the building. The second activity room is very difficult for the seniors to get to because it was raised up to put the van underneath it. And there's a chair in there to help people get up, but it's still, I don't think it passed ADA compliance today. We went on to a study back in 2018 and 2019, which is study number 1. And that came back with a proposition that was expensive, 14,000 square foot, a nice design, a nice building. But there were other priorities in town at that time. That was right around the time the police station was moving in and the needs for our safety was there. The fire station was just completed a little while before that. And then we moved on to Mike actually proposed, Mike Petrovic, the architect we're using right now, proposed to Amy a design that started to move forward right before pandemic for a smaller building on the existing premise, about 7,500 square feet. We did a further needs analysis since then, And to build a property that's good for today, but also be there good for another 10 years and have the capability to add on if we need to, maybe 15 years. We should be, we need a space of about 11,600 square feet approximately. And that's rendition at the bottom. So the journey's been going on for 7 years, probably. And it's time to, I think, do something for the seniors. Next slide, please. I wanted to stop here because as we go through this, we started this as a project with an expansion of the current center. We ran into a number of difficulties. The well wasn't in spec to be where it was after the building was at. The parking was insufficient. Expanding the center would have been difficult just on the footprint of the area. Septic system would have had to go beyond and into town-owned property. We could have met, we could have gone through it. And then the cost for a new building were relatively the same. When we discovered that, because the rest of the building pretty much would have been gutted, when we discovered that, we said, okay, what else can we do in town? What's available? So we went to North Avenue, Route 16, which was a town-owned municipal property across from Clough's parking lot. We also had an opportunity, somebody was going to donate land to us on North Ave in Hartford and Hopedale Street. And we discovered that there were some issues with that as we went forward. And then we also looked at the Morrison Drive property, which was once built for the police station that never happened, next to the fire station. And looking at all these properties, we asked the committee and each member to sit there and go through all the things on the left-hand side of this analysis. Observations, traffic locations, contracts, legals, and on it went. That was an individual activity that each performed. We came back as a group and talked about that, walked through it, and we came up with the next page was the following. And we looked at all three sites, and I can give you the highlights why these things fell where they did. We'll start with the one on the bottom, Morrison Drive. Because of the construction costs, we've been still doing a lot of construction on it to rearrange the building because it wasn't sufficient for size. The access point to the building was somewhat concerned because we would have tried to put a different road system into it to avoid seniors driving past the fire station in case there's an emergency there. And the parking there would have been, we would have had to start to clear out some land. We probably would have wound up in a paddock property, which we bought somewhere along the process. So the assessment, that came in at a 54-57, and high number is not a good number here. This is a golf game. The current location, when we dove down that, if we wanted to expand to the 11,000 square feet and have expandability in the future, there just wasn't room there was the primary reason. It also would displace the senior center for the whole construction period for 1 year plus, because there's no way we could use the building because we'd have to gut the entire building. So that came in at 38 score. North Ave and Hopedale Street came in at 28. And I think that was a favorite by a lot of people because it was away from the congestion. That was the donated parcel. We went through the process of looking at what it would take with our legal department to remove a conservation and use restriction that's been placed on that property. And lo and behold, we found it to be 2 town meetings, a couple of years in the state. And that would have cost us at least 5 to 8% a year in additional cost to build every year we delayed. And back when I started this project with the people there, I said, we're going to try to do this in our lifetime. And that looked like it wasn't in our lifetime. Great opportunity and a very generous person to donate the land, but it just wasn't feasible within the time frame. And then we come down to the area across Clough School. And after doing a previous page, we had traffic studies. The traffic wasn't that bad compared to North Ave. Strangely enough, coming down past our current location has more traffic than any of them. So there was a number of other reasons and a lot of details, which I'll gladly share with the team. But that's where the team committed. We went through a process of elimination, a couple of voting rounds, and we landed on Route 16 and North Ave. Next slide, please. Mike, this is where you go. Mike Petrovic and John has, if you give the fob to Brandon.
Yes.
Brandon.
The only file on that, so it's pretty easy to find. Thank you.
So while he's setting that up, I do have a couple of questions
Sure.
about the North Ave across from Clough versus on the corner of Hopedale Street. You know, one of the issues that sticks in my mind, I was around when the land was purchased at the Four Corners specifically for a public safety municipal building. And the reason was that having a fire station at the corner was the best place for them to respond to everybody in town.
Mhm.
And I'm still not convinced that that's not the best use for the property. So I really would like to drill down a little bit more about why that location up near, closer to Misco, you know, at the corner of Hopedale.
I guess if we take a look at it, when we drilled down, we talked to legal, we looked at the trust that it's in.
Mhm.
We looked at the conservation agreement.
Mhm.
We looked at the use, which was one of the stipulars. The building size was a restriction to begin with.
Did you say?
No, I'm specifically,
You're talking
right,
about.
I'm talking about
Hopedale.
it was- originally that area was supposed to be for a library. That's what was originally, it was literally intended,
Yeah,
right.
the Hopedale.
So that's the one we're speaking about, yeah.
Yeah. So in that trust process, to reverse the thing, we'd have to go to the state.
Mhm.
So first we do a motion to come to the town to get that process started, to
Mhm.
get a vote. We would then go to get it through a town meeting and get it voted for. That would take probably 6 months to a year, I believe, get that process. We could. do
And
a
I don't
town
think it would,
meeting.
I don't think it would necessarily take that long, but
But-
But then
Well,
state
it-
legislature also.
yeah, the state would have to reverse it.
Yeah, well, you,
At a two, I believe Kara said it was a 2/3 majority in the legislature also.
and going back to your other point, Mike, though, if we needed to put public safety, we're only using less than 3 acres of land of the 24-26 parcel area. And our original designs we had, and I think Mike will get into it, there was a proposal, we could put a road down there to the other access to the other portions of that.
Mhm.
So in the future, if we wanted to put a fire station or municipal station in that parcel, there's still 20-some acres left below. That
Did-
puts it.
Let me ask you, did your committee speak to the fire chief at all about locating, how the loop 2 would locate together, co-locate on the point?
We haven't, because I didn't know there was a desire for that. I thought they were
Was bought for municipal use,
municipal use.
municipal in general.
Right.
But there was a proposal to do a combined public safety on that corner. And since then, we've put a fire station in and we put a police station in, so, to Mike's point, if it's an ideal spot, then, but we haven't talked to him.
No, not at all. Right. But you know what? The fire chief is right here. Chief, not to put you on the spot, but I mean, are you still of the idea that center location would be a good location? Yeah, so all I'm saying is that, if it would be great to, whatever plans as you pursue would be good to locate it in such a way that if we wanted to have the fire station in proximity to it, I actually see a lot of good of having those two close to each other, that it would work. We should plan for that
We
possibility.
can do that there.
I think this is a bigger issue. I think we gotta look at this, you bring up a good point, Mike, but I think we gotta look at maybe having a broader discussion about use of that land, because there are other people that look at that and say that'd be great for potential mixed use housing, commercial, given it's right on 16, which actually was a plus for the senior. We thought that would actually be a good use of senior center with mixed use. So what I'm concerned about is that it could be used in a number of different ways. And honestly, until I think I spoke to you, I never considered having a fire station now until I saw the capital request for a new fire station. I said, that's good. It's not so much a new fire station, but the idea of relocating it came up. I think the town as a whole has to weigh in on that, because that's a big, big question of, because we have a fire station and you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
my concern is a little bit of timing. So if the design could be such that we leave it open-ended to possibly relocate a fire station at some
We'll
point.
actually address that in this part of
Okay,
Okay,
the discussion.
well,
Perfect.
good. Any other questions before we let Mike on there?
I'd just like to say, before this was brought up, all I think I could think of is that it's amazing to put a senior center across from an elementary school. So I think the partnerships there could be really great.
Yeah, and I think both locations had that capability. And it was way too high for Misco and the other one. But again, there's a cost factor, and you'll see this in the presentation that Mike presents. As we wait for these buildings, prices go up extremely high. But go ahead, Mike.
we just don't want to design ourselves into a corner is what I'm hearing.
Oh, I don't think we will. I don't think we will. Go ahead, Mike.
You definitely don't want to do that. And my firm that we do fire stations also. So, and the idea of them coexisting, there's a few issues, but I think I'm going to talk about that a little bit about that, kind of off the cuff here. So next slide, please. So as Phil introduced, I'm Mike Petrovic from Michael Petrovic Architects. John is with us. In this study, we engaged a company named PM&C, who does professional cost estimating. They provided us with all of the real world cost estimates that we used as part of this. There are market prices, current prices using real world numbers that are happening on projects currently. The committee also involved D&L Design Group to help us with some site specific design work specific to the site. So next slide, please. So, we've talked a lot about what senior centers are, and I think Phil, you went into that a bit, so we can skip over this slide. This was part of our initial presentation. The current facility, we talked a little bit about that. So our program, we started off with a program, what we call 3.0, which was the third time that I visited this project with the town. And we decided that, or the committee decided that some of the spaces that we had concluded in the 7,500 square foot solution were just a little bit too short-sighted for growth and for future. So, and if they were going to do this and had, as we all know, in municipalities, you get a one-shot deal, and then you get 25 to 50 years, you got to before you get back for money again. So let's look at this as a longer-term project and a longer-term solution. So we did a study and looking at the spaces that the Council on Aging would need to really provide the services for the seniors in town, and it came out to be about 13,400 square feet. So we do an exercise in this that looks at what the programs are, et cetera. So next slide, please. So this is the site, and so what I will do is say that the site is large enough that ideally, if fire or public safety were going to go here, it should be where we are, and this could slide down the hill. It's very easy to do that. I would not want to see the senior center up the top of the hill with fire and public safety vehicles trying to go past there on a regular basis.
Yep. Can I just ask, my memory is that this parcel has three pieces to it. There's the piece closest to North Ave.
Mhm.
And then there's obviously the piece at the bottom across from the drive-in, which has now been sold, that has solar in the back and is actually having a commercial building in the front for storage. And then there was another conservation restricted piece in the middle. So is this all the piece that is not conservation restricted? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
So you could do this kind of taking this project and moving anywhere on the site. The only thing that we looked at as part of this, and it's still shown here, is that, to access this site, this project starts to bear putting in an access road. And so if it were going to move down the hill to leave way for some future use, that road would probably go up in cost. It's kind of built as a driveway currently, but then if it were going to be built as a public road, there's a different set of standards for constructing a road, so it might drive up the costs on this.
Yeah, our analysis, when we looked at it as a road, was about 1.2 million. So these are all good. As we look at this, we need to look at the cost effects moving forward.
We have access to Route 16 also. So if you were to put a fire station in there, I don't think you want emergency vehicles in front of the school with the school buses congestion. You could do something like Grove Street in Franklin, where they designed the fire station with an emergency light. That's inexpensive compared to the alternate. So you still have access with all of this property. There's 2 access ways to 16. So, I mean, really to come out on 16 with a dedicated light there that would just stop traffic just for emergency vehicles would probably make more sense than 2 o'clock with the school getting out and the school buses everywhere.
Question on that. Is this whole, my understanding is that this whole front strip right here is conservation restricted. Is that true? Or
Your access point.
Where are the access points at?
okay.
The ones that are not really access point through those walls there.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was looked at before with public safety for 2 access was when we were going to build the joint building. It wasn't going to be just coming in from North Ave. We were going to get 16 too.
So however that starts to play out in town, this project could move on the site. But it sounds like, yeah, that to Dave's point, that having public safety access by the elementary school might not be a great idea. So next slide, please. So as we look at our site specific, we lay out the site. We've got ample parking. I think we've got a little more parking here than we may require. And so our building actually provides on our site. We like to do working with seniors on a site. There's a certain way that we like to direct them to drive. We like to try to get all kinds of circular motion. We try to avoid them crossing each other too often with 94 and 95-year-old parents that just stop driving. That's a good thing. And so we really have ways that we like to have traffic patterns on the site happen and flow through the site. One of the things that you'll see as we go through the floor plan is that because of the terrain of this property, we actually get to have a full daylight lower level, if you will. And down there, we've got a second meeting space, which will be accessible to the public for meetings such as this. And so we've provided a second entrance to the building and some additional parking down there for meetings like this that won't happen.
Mike's point on that, I'd just like to add is that the current building is used by at least 10 organizations for meetings and activities. This new building would also provide the capability, similar to what Upton's put in place, is that if you needed a facility and you were a resident, they'd just charge them the cost of the facility to clean it, a couple $100, and they can have facility use of this building. They could use these meeting rooms. I think I saw on our local town Facebook, somebody said, do you know any place you could put 60 people? I think that was this week or the other day. My wife, somebody told me that. Well, this building could accommodate those things for birthday parties, things like that. Obviously, it'd be weekend activities or evenings, but that would be a full service capability as well. Not only the organizations we support, but the townspeople at large.
Next slide, please. So this is what our engineers kind of did for us, so we actually can prove out the site and what it would take to build the site. So when we did the cost estimate, our cost estimators had a true site plan to design from. So that's usually the biggest unknown with doing schematic estimates is the site work. So this helps us to really zero in on a good number on the site work. Next slide, please. So our building takes on, this was our original design for the building, which this design was about 14,000 square feet. Main level entry, program spaces, and then we had a lower level, elevator and stairs. This is the meeting space down in the lower level, entrance to the lower level, food pantry with its own entrance. This is a little bit more elaborate design. And so you're going to see that we came back to the drawing board based on numbers and exercised a little more restraint and refined our design here and pared down the building a bit. Next slide, please. So the committee expressed to us that they would like the building is, even though it's a 13 or 14,000 square foot building, how do we make this building look like it fits in Mendon on that site? It doesn't really look like a large oversized building. It looks inviting and warm and a place the seniors would like to spend time. So we kind of took the New England farmhouse approach, and because it allowed us to divide the building up into sections. So we've got a section that kind of emulates, a 1.5-story Cape style house. We've got a barn and a connector. And so you see a lot of commercial buildings and municipal buildings that take this approach. And so this starts to really tone it down and really make it a warm and inviting place and something welcoming architecturally in that spot in Mendon. Next slide, please. So we, as I said, we went back to the drawing board to reduce it because our numbers came in really high. And so we looked at what we call 3.1. So we refined it with the committee and did some work, and we got this building down to 11,800 square feet. So we took about 2,500 square feet out of the building. Next slide, please. And the way we did that is, you remember what I showed you, this previous version of floor plans. This floor plan has basically gone unchanged except some work here in this corner. We actually have taken this part out of the lower level and it's now unexcavated slab on grade. Because what we realize is that this represents about $1 million in excavation, land, dirt moving, and then these huge foundations. So why do that? That's not a good use of money. And so, with refining the design a little bit, we realized we could go without that space. And so we still have the design where this is the primary entrance. We have program spaces on the first floor, administration, kitchen, the large multi-purpose room, which can be divided in two. So it can be two separate spaces for programming. Lower level has program spaces, the food pantry, and an additional multi-purpose room, which would be used for senior center programming or could be used by the public. The way this is designed is that this can be locked off, separate entrance, separate restroom. So this can function on its own with the rest of the building closed off so that the security of all the senior center activity and all their belongings is kind of kept secure. So the building really does serve multi-purpose. Food pantry is in there. Food pantry now shares the lower level entrance, which is just an economical way to save some money. So we're at about 11,800 square feet. Next slide, please. Exterior hasn't really changed much. We added some windows here, got rid of just this blank wall. So I think the building has really stayed the same, using materials that are, again, materials we've seen throughout New England for hundreds of years. So I think we've got a good look, some architectural detailing that really kind of brings it in scale with what you'd like to see here in town. We were told that we wanted to be traditional, that we should not do anything too modern. So we very traditional. Next slide, please. So this is what it starts to look like in a rendering. It's very human scale, very residential scale, very comfortable. It's not overpowering. I've worked on some senior centers in upwards of 25,000 square feet. They start to get very intimidating, but they're in bigger municipalities and urban settings so if we can do something, this is really comfortable for seniors to be at. Next slide.
One point to make, so Mike, I believe back, I don't think you have to go back, is that we did leave room on the back side of the facility for future expansion 25 years from now, 20 years or 30, whatever it may be.
It was room for expansion.
Yeah, there's room for expansion at this site, designed in the thinking to be up front, and you wouldn't have to shut it down.
Yeah, mind you, that you'll see that there is a lot of room around this building. One of the reasons why this site is fairly large, beyond the building footprint and the parking, is that we need three things that we don't always need. We need a septic system for building this size because we don't have municipal sewer. We also need a public water supply. In a building like this, it's public water, so it's got to be a well that's really set us up further apart than it would be for a residence. The third thing is that we have to sprinkle this building, so we have to have underground storage for water for the sprinkler system. And my estimation, based on, we do a lot of these in New Hampshire. And so every fire station we do in New Hampshire now has to have underground, pretty much underground water supply. So this thing would need about 30,000 gallons of water underground for its sprinkler system. So therefore, it needs space to have all that stuff on site along with the building. So we've carved out what we feel is a real comfortable site to put all that in. Next slide, please. So what does this cost? So we did our first go around, and by the time we got everything in this building, we were well over almost $15 million that's with soft costs. All of the percentages, all the construction fees, bonding, insurance, permitting, et cetera. We were in profit and overhead. We're just under $15 million. The committee felt that didn't really exercise restraint and really wasn't what they wanted to put forth to the townsfolk. So that's when we went back to the drawing board and refined the size of our building. So now we're down just over 13 million, 13.1. And that is a number we are very comfortable taking to the town to see if they can support the project. It does include things like because this is schematic design, you'll see there's a design and pricing contingency. We've got a design, but it hasn't been structurally designed, mechanically designed, and all of that. So there's those things in there. The other thing that we do always include is owner contingency, which that carries all the way through. This one here starts to go away over time or gets used partially. So as the project evolves, these things change, but this is the 13.1 is a number that is a very comfortable number to get this built.
And that's in today's dollars.
Today's dollars.
And what do you estimate the increase is going to be yearly as we wait?
So right now we're at about 5.5% year over year.
5.5%. Chief Kersey, when we designed when you all designed the police station, between the time it got designed and when it actually got finished, how much had the cost increased?
We had to add another 1.3 million.
And what was the original?
It's 5 million with independent spending about 6.3.
So it went up about 20%.
Yeah, and that was one because of COVID, and then it was within 18 months.
That's not an unusual number, 20%, right?
It actually is. That's a really good number. I mean, our having done estimating, and so during COVID, we saw that. And a lot of projects fell right where your police station did during that time period.
Does anybody have the numbers about the library when we started that between the time we conceived it and finished it? Because I think that was a similar creep. About 20% plus.
20%. I can honestly say, I've never had a project that's had to go back to town for more money. When you go through this process, that's why, we've got $1 million in there for design contingency.
Yeah, between the two, and talking to the committee in Upton and putting the rigors around what they did, they had their weekly engineering meetings, what's in, what's out, put the change orders in. You didn't assume immediately that 1.2 in the design contingency was available. A lot of that you're gonna have to contribute to some of that. They said they went about 5% over, no, they used 5% of the contingency.
Mm-hmm.
They had a contingency usually planned higher. They only used 5% of it, 5 or 6%.
How much was
that
that contingency?
I think they were looking at 8 or 9%. Was contingency, so they went under the contingency.
Mhm.
Expenses did occur with the expansion of the playground and other areas out there because they did a pretty big job on that. And they came in at 11,000 square feet at about 12.4 million.
Mhm.
That was last year and a half ago.
So the other thing to understand about the process is that this just to say the 13.1 gets approved at town meeting, it's a go. That's the number that the design team has to live by. So what happens is that we do, us or anyone, it may not be us that actually designs this building to move forward. The reality of it is that during design development, you do 2 professional estimates. And then you do the last one, the 50% construction documents. You have an estimator on your team that is really kind of liable, so that when this thing goes to bid, it can't come over, right? Because then somebody's going to go back to somebody and say, what did you do? It isn't go back to town meeting for more money. It's that your design team and your estimating team did not deliver upon their contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so the contracts that I've been involved in, we can't go over that number. The only way you can go over that number is if somebody says, we're gonna change the scope and then we're gonna go back to town
Hmm.
meeting. I think it's, personally, I would feel like I did a disservice by not sticking to that number. And if the bid came in over that number, that's the problem. Unless we have something like COVID that turns everything upside down.
Well, COVID impacted the building industry by 24%.
And what is the number for the contingency that you get in there?
So we have. Yeah. And we have handouts.
Because that's an eye test. I can't see that.
So we have $1.1 million.
Okay, so it's about 8%,
12, the design expense is 12%.
12%.
Correct. We have a 12% number that they give us.
Oh, they give us the 13.
Right, yeah.
And then there's also 630 something there.
That doesn't get used till later on.
Right.
That's your owner's contingency that you in there.
That's our contingency, right?
Can I ask, so you have the PV array on there, so you were thinking about green technologies, like how much of the construction project here includes green tech? How much of that did you have to cut back?
We did, what we did is we took the PV out as taking it out, right? It's in what we call an add alternate.
Okay.
So what happens is that if contingencies are still available, the add alternate can go in and the PV can go in. The building is a high performance envelope. And it's all set up for PV. So the building itself is a very economical building. It's a little more costly to build, but the cost of ownership is way down.
What about infrastructure for charging and things or future electrical uses?
We haven't got that in here, but that's something that, again, owner's contingency, we can say we're gonna have some charging stations in there.
In working with Ann, there's possibilities to work to get some offset for that array. And through mass,
Green community.
yeah, the great, a couple.
Yeah, I mean, if it's gonna be in the middle of town, I'd like to be an example of what the town,
Right.
atmosphere is. And if you got the style, that's great, but I also like to have some fortitude there.
And again, so if this were to get approved, right, the directive could be that when the design team comes on, whether it's us or whomever, that in this number, we want, 6 charging stations and we want the PVs and the whole thing has to work, right?
Yep, I get it. This is your design constraint, these numbers.
Exactly. And I think when I don't ever want, the police station was a unique thing. A lot of buildings that went through building at that particular point in time fell upon that same situation. But otherwise, that really should not happen if everyone's doing their job.
Phil, I know Mark's not here, but did we go into the emergency management aspects of this?
The building was designed to handle 125 people emergency. Which is what we're spec'd out for a community we should be. We have the capability to store cots and things of that for those 125 people. We have added the shower facilities within the bathrooms because that's a requirement as well. And there's a backup generation system, which we probably could take natural gas off the pipe off of Route 16 rather than do the tank that we have down on Providence Road.
So I mean, the current senior center is an emergency management
Yes.
site. That's really subpar. So there's a lot of thought in terms of making sure that this meets all the needs of the town.
Yeah, Mark was involved with us. And he's talked to Mike's team and we've filled Mike in and this design has that capability to support the emergency management. The cooling center in the summer, emergency management if we have a disaster. And it's the proper kind because we do have the full facility with the kitchen, the food and the showers and the gathering room. Well, that'll be your cot areas.
That's right.
And you can also subdivide that area. So if you wanted to get a family area, single area, most family here, but so there's a lot of flexibility there. But it is designed in. We try to take a look at all the uses in the community because we're really looking at this as a senior community and a community center. It's
take a shot too.
But that's the number we're sitting at. And I think that's the one, the due diligence of the team. We went back to Mike 2 or 3 times. The committee scrubbed it 2 or 3 times, tried to get every nickel and dime we could out of it without losing the capability and functionality. We made some decisions on siding, we made some decision on that front wall, retaining wall, just knocking that out, looking at square footage and the value of that square footage. Looking at rearranging to the point of stairways and elevators. And we were able to keep the functionality that Amy and the town can use and needs, but be able to reduce the cost down $1 million or $2 million.
Have you guys come up with a proposal for the reuse of that building?
There's some things rumbling around.
We're gonna talk about that now.
We're gonna have that later in the discussion with Mike, but also there's a reuse committee that we probably would want to launch once this got approved. And there's people who want that building that we have identified.
Because it's serviceable, even though
It's in moving condition,
Moving
sales.
condition, yeah. And because of our wacky area downstairs for a van and the pantry supply that comes in for the kids, there happens to be quite a large area that is like a big garage, which happens to be attractive to some of the organizations. I won't.
You can say it. I mean, it's.
You mean parks, Dan? Got a ruler out over there.
Office.
I read.
Parks. Yeah, I mean, but, I mean, yeah, we're gonna talk about it later, so
Yeah,
it's okay to.
but yeah, the thought of as soon as we said we're gonna abandon the place, what are we gonna do with it? That came up. We didn't want another Morrison Drive set.
A little bit different. Morrison Drive was never
Yeah,
occupied.
Morrison Drive's just
Finished,
empty
right.
shell. It was
That's
never-
true, the show.
And that was not a public
Building.
building. It was a group of volunteers that went as far as they could, really without any kind of,
Budget.
or any kind of public town mandate or vote or agreement.
Oh, okay.
They just kind of did what they wanted to do until they ran out of steam, and then the town had no appetite to pick it up and continue, so.
One of the things that the committee spent a lot of time on and is the fact that we need to build this facility so that it's not just enough.
Mhm.
And I think we do a lot of that. We just get ourselves enough. And 2 days after you move in, you're looking for more. So I think we took that into consideration, the committee. Every time we talked about decisions, is this enough to take care of the seniors as well as the community?
And that was one of the main concerns with the current site is the parking. The parking alone was going to be challenging because the configuration of it was not really great for the site for a senior center. So having a new site gives a lot more flexibility in that configuration.
Well, my memory of the current building was, again, that there was a group of
Absolutely.
volunteers
Yep.
that basically created it out of nothing with no budget. And just,
And for 35 years, it served a lot of people.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who love that building, actually would, right now, feel bad that we leave it. But we need to build something that takes care of them and gives them a proper place and also has a future for the town.
For anyone that's interested, the calculation is that the building cost is $1,123 a square foot. That's what I was just doing. Consider a basic residential house, it's about $400 a square foot. Okay. Sadly,
That includes the road construction?
it does.
It's
Not the road, right. Well, it was gonna be a full road. We had to cut the road deck to end of the drive.
I can see that.
Too expensive.
Just,
Is there?
That was $1 million.
Anything else, Glenn? Anything else? You want to present? That's it?
Is there anything else you want us to do? We can start designing a fire station now if you want.
This is not a. Wait a minute.
but that's the biggest I've seen him smile all day.
2 for 1 deal? If you throw just my other thing in there real quick, my fob,
Oh, yeah, sure.
if it's still there, if the file's still there.
It is, I just have to switch.
Okay, if you go to the next slide. This is just 2 quick slides and then we can chat. There's the cost. I'd urge the board and the finance committee to look at any other sources of income to apply to this cost. That's, any ARPA, CapEx, whatever it may be. I'm not here to project that. I'm just saying it would be nice. Spread that around. There is a grant effort that's going to begin. It has begun. We have Mark who's looked at the grants for the emergency management. He figures out he can probably get some to help us for little things. Just outfit the place. Lonnie was looking at an earmark potentially. He doesn't have a resolution of that, but he was going to put some calls out. So there's potentially, he's looking for ADA specific earmark from Patman and his group. We'll see.
Right behind you.
Oh, Lonnie, I didn't see. You should pull over a chair. So we'll get an update on that shortly. We have parks, we have recreation and trails that I've met with that group and Ann and Dan. To look at for the recreational area that we want with the building and trails, and we've identified CPA funds for that. Potentially that could be used. I'm going to go to their committee. If we get past this committee, you guys. And then the emergency shelter, we already talked about. Mark, other grants. I've reached out to, connected with the Collins Center, David Colton. And he and I are going to have a serious conversation about what else we can find. I apologize for getting it so late. It's just been a real puzzle for me to figure out this town business. Friends of the Elders have some activities. They've already, if we pass it, they're ready to set up a separate account. Start collecting money, do fundraising, be creative. Creativity could be around private donations also through the elders, because we can't do it. I still think we go to the town for the 13, whatever it is, and unless there's some town money we could reduce that with. And these other things would just be benefits that would offset our.
Have you done a calculation if we were to do a 20-year bond for an override, what that would cost?
We looked at a 30.
30, 25, 15.
And
As Nick from FinCom has his hand up, you can't see it.
Oh.
Yeah, Nick, do you want to go ahead and talk?
go ahead, Nick.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Just want to first off thank the committee for their work on this. It's very detailed and good presentation. So I appreciate the effort from the group. This is Nick Sienter from the Finance Committee. And I might have missed this, and if I did, I'll watch the replay. Has there been a discussion of septic and potential contamination of the land, which I know that has been discussed in the past from pesticides? Has that been factored into the?
It has. We've gone out to the engineering company and the soil sample and studies underway and being conducted. Speaking to the engineer who does the soil samples, he was positive, and I got a good report from the land and topography of it, but I don't have the soil sample land in yet. That's still in the works, but we should have it shortly. But we did do those soil samples about a month ago.
Great, thank you.
They did 10 test holes, also looking for granite and ledge.
Great.
Thanks to our highway department. They helped us out.
So with those different calculations, what was the? I don't know, did you have any numbers about the typical house and what the impact would be on the?
On a 660, whatever the average we use here.
Mhm.
I think it was somewhere around, help me here, but I think it was around $400 and some dollars, or $300 and some dollars, $400 for the 13.
Yeah, I think it's,
Three, when it was 750, it was close to 300. When it was a million, it was close to 4.
Yeah,
So the average was like a little under 3.
Yeah.
For a $650,000 house.
That's over the 20-year.
Yeah.
Over 20 years or 30 years, or which was
30
it?
years.
I think
So average $650,000 house, assessed value house.
Yep.
30 years is how much per year?
Of the sheet. I can probably flip.
I can pull, I don't have it.
I just need to know the number. I don't need to look at it. I can just.
No, I have eyes worse than you. See, like a home value, the tax, and so you're saying 500,000, that was 225.
Yeah.
10 to 30, then
That's
7,
750 is about 337.
that's, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I can bring it up on my sheet.
So what we did is
Yeah, I see it. So
actually, Jody was very helpful with us.
I
This
bet.
chart.
Yeah, Jody brought, and Mike pulled this together.
So, so what that chart showed me over 30 years, if we were to do the 13 million as a, I guess, a debt exclusion or it would be $337 per year for a $750,000 assessed house.
That seems about right. I don't have the paperwork. So maybe. Yeah.
And the average, Jody, what is the average tax bill now for a house of that assessment right now? Is it about 8,000 a year?
Just multiply the tax rate. 1371 for industrial, commercial, residential, and then 1369 for industrial, commercial, open space. And that just has to do with the,
$10,000. Based on Jody's numbers.
Yeah, that's what I know it was somewhere between 8 and 10. So this is about another 337 a year, a year.
Mhm.
For the 13 million.
So depending on the timing of all this, is that number potentially offset by other debt coming off the books?
yes, it's a larger conversation, but there are opportunities there
Okay. Thank you.
for the first year.
Anything else?
I don't know, is there, one more slide, just next steps, I guess, I'm sorry. Next steps.
No, it's not.
I'd like to ask the select board to give us the go-ahead to start the move to our town's meeting for a warrant, for an article, I guess. And then the only other thing I wanted to note there is the community preservation. I have spoke with them, and Ann, based on what happens here, will move with her committee to move with CPA funds to support recreation and ADA trails, which we, by the way, we have none of them. We have one of our walkers for the seniors here, Diane, who goes to Hopedale, Millville, Blackstone, but walks nowhere in Mendon because they can't.
All our trails are uneven,
Uneven,
ungroomed.
ungroomed, uneven. They're really nice for the
We have
young.
a lot of them.
Oh, we got a lot of them. But with Ann, we were talking about, there's a trail that she wants to connect many other trails, but we can do a nice ADA portion of that. And that would be something that seniors could use and the whole town could use.
Yeah, like a heart walk or something.
Yeah, if, you know, if I had a handicapped kid and wanted to use our trails, we couldn't do it.
Fire station and the senior center within the fire station in the back. I wouldn't want to go and park at the senior center and walk by the fire station toward to a trail. That'd be a little bit nerve-wracking and they were walking and then all of a sudden there's an emergency and these vehicles coming out of there, that's not. But if they want to put the center at the back and fire station up the front, that I don't think that makes much sense. Because if we're trying to get out of there at a particular time and everybody's emergency. Sitting there.
Well, if they were gonna design it, it would be in such a way that the path from the senior center to the trail would be separated from the fire station, so that wouldn't be.
Yeah, in my conversations with Ann, she wants to get a design person.
Yeah.
Take a look at it.
I guess that's my point.
Yeah.
Right.
And that if that's a factor, we could consider that in, as Mike would consider this in senior center, if we need to allocate police and fire station.
Same with the Route 16 work coming up in a few years here.
Yeah, that's gonna really hit close to the conservation area, so. The only other thing is, once we get forward, we got the teams ready to roll to organize meetings with each one of the departments and committees. And then subsequently do that with open sessions at the senior center for the townspeople. And we're also gonna go to promote that throughout the town, because we've got the newspaper that goes out. Mendon Upton, we're putting a bulletin in them. Now, we've been doing soft promotion now. But if we really want to get this to move, we need to get input from everybody and we're willing to do it. We have a communications team in place, 2 members here.
Oh,
One of them,
that's why we need this.
yes. And you may have seen more traffic on the town page, community page, the senior center. That's what started this. So that's all I have, but I'm looking for select board to say, go ahead and build a article for this.
Well, I think
Well,
I would
placeholder.
suggest that you come up with an article and we can certainly vote on it. When does the warrant close,
The
Laura?
14th of March,
March 14th.
Thursday at 4 PM.
Now, is the article more than placing the senior center new building at North Ave and Route 16?
Well, ultimately, the article, the article to vote on would be, you know, obviously to approve the funding, so approval, you know,
The
the
funding.
amount.
Can we just give a town council to write the article? So
That's what I was gonna ask.
Fine.
Sure.
At the
So-
station one.
Okay,
So I guess the ask then is for the committee to engage town council to draft an article with all the appropriate language. But I think there's still the ask to the board saying, you know, or I'd say, I guess what I heard was if you have an article, we'll vote on it, but at this point in time,
we
are you
need,
looking for some sense from the board saying there's some level of support for this article? I mean,
yeah, that's well clear. Is there a level of support to go to the article? That's a better way to describe it. And by getting the town council involved, the board getting the town council to help write the article, that would be your support. There's no sense.
I think
moving
Karis is actually on the meeting, so I mean,
Should be by now, yeah. should be.
yeah, so any issue with engaging town council and drafting the article?
I think the first thing is what we need to do is a motion to support moving forward. So is there a motion? Is there such a motion from?
I move to support,
Is there a second?
putting this on, to developing a draft of a warrant article to present.
Second. All right, any other discussion?
I'm all for it.
Well, there's no question that it's necessary. And, you know, from the first time the seniors came in here a couple of years ago, I mean, the board was in favor of it. And it's not going to get any cheaper. It's not going to get any smaller. And it is an issue. That's right, right.
Well, actually, yeah, the need is actually getting bigger.
It is up to the people. So we need to put it to them.
Sure.
My only
So,
recommendation is the marketing push hard. That's why things don't succeed at town meeting, is because people aren't aware of, you know, your good point of view. So make sure you get it.
It's, yeah, clear. I mean, if townspeople don't want it, we're gonna give it a run. If they don't want it, that's,
They might not know what they're looking for.
But we also encourage everybody, you know, everybody who supports it to get the word out along with us, because this is, word of mouth is so key. So for all of us.
Know that there were a lot of people.
okay, I think that,
Thank you, Julie.
Joe, do you have a question?
We have been successful on soliciting, or really providing an avenue for people to make donations to different things. For example, the tax relief fund and donations. And so if there's ever a need or an opportunity to go that route, to give people an easy avenue to be able to make an online donation, let me know and I can get that set up on behalf of the committee.
thank you. Well, we'll consider that. We're gonna get the Friends engaged more fully. And that may be an avenue. There's a couple of things we're looking at.
So the motion's been made and seconded.
And then all in favor?
Well, besides it then. All those in favor? Aye. All right, it's unanimous. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Beautiful building too.
I'm gonna hang some of the.
Came in, of course.
Rebuilt.
Yes, yeah,
That's all.
it does. I agree.
I know it, I mean, you missed the word.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
why
really.
people find the phone. That's why
That's a part of the process.
And yeah, and they also brought the thing about other things. And the fact that we talked about it and we have it in such a way.
They're like, they look at, they take care of people who are paying attention. So the kids and the adults.
All right, let's move to number 6, consider vote of intention to lay out a roadway for Pond Street. Note that, I don't know if we all had a chance to look, there is but to the esteemed members of the select board, at a meeting of the amended planning board on October 16, 2023, the board favorably voted 3-0-0 to recommend the select board accept Pond Street as a public way. And we have this set up to lay out the roadway. So I guess I'd be looking for a motion as written here. Somebody could read this.
I move the Mendon Select Board on its own initiative upon the recommendation of the Highway Surveyor Jonathan Dudley and Planner Jack Hunter, vote its intent to lay out Pond Street as a town way. It is the opinion of the Select Board that common convenience and necessity require the laying out of town ways at this location.
Second.
All right. There's no discussion. Is there any discussion or any questions? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all very much. Let's see. Number 7, which is consider the presidential primary warrant. This is a warrant from Secretary of the Commonwealth, Bill Galvin, for the County of Worcester. That this is for the primary, which is presidential preference, state committee, women and water town committee. Can I have a motion?
I move to sign the March 5th, 2024 presidential primary warrant.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Number 8. Consider flag adoption policy. Just as an explanation, we had received a couple of different requests to fly particular types of flags. And this came out of apparently some controversy or discussions with the city of Boston, which had allowed some things and then tried to stop somebody else. And what came out of it was, if you don't have a policy or if you've had a practice in the past, you really can't stop anybody else. And just Karis, I think Karis is on here.
She's on.
I just want to, and just correct me if I'm incorrect. I know you will, but the way she described it to me is that this policy reserves the flags, the town property, the town flags for town speech only. And the policy would not allow any other outside entities to come in and fly their flags or their other statements on those town spaces. Is that? Now you can fix it and.
No, with respect to flagpoles, banner poles, or electronic signboards, they are reserved for town speech and the town's expression of their official sentiments. So it is, as you said, Mike, it is reserved for the town, town government, town events, special occasions that the town has, maybe you've decided to declare March as DPW week and you want to put, or DPW month, and you want to put DPW flags around. That's all within the purview. But someone else coming up and saying, we want to declare March Purple Month, you're able to say, nope, we don't allow anybody to declare, and use our flagpoles, banner poles, or electronic signboards.
If there's no objection, I'm just going to, as quickly as I can, read this policy and then we can vote on it.
Sounds good.
All right. So it says Town of Mendon Flagpole Speech Center Policy. This was provided by our town council. So purpose. This policy addresses the Town of Mendon's display of flags and banners or electronic signboards on flagpoles and or banner poles located on town property. Policy reserves the use of all town speech centers and selection of speech symbols to the town acting through the select board or the select board designee. Policy, it is the policy of the Town of Mendon that speech symbols be displayed in conformance with federal and state policies as stated in the federal Our Flag publication of the Congress, House Document 96-144, Chapter 2, Section 6 of the Mass General Laws, and Chapter 2, Section 6A of the Mass General Laws. Flag order of precedence, outdoor flags will be flown on town flagpoles in the following order of precedence. First, the United States flag, second, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts flag, and third, the Town of Mendon flag. The town may also fly any official United States military flag, including the POW MIA flag, and any related honorary and memorial United States military flags on any flagpole. Flag special occasions by order of the select board or the board's designee. Flags may be lowered to half staff, including but not limited to flags of the United States of America and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in honor of the death of a town employee killed in the line of duty or in observance of a specific event or circumstance. Other speech symbols. Town speech centers are not intended to serve as a forum for free expression by the public and are not open to use by the public. Town speech centers are intended solely for the expression of speech by the town, subject to the limitations as set forth in this policy. The town's ceremonial flagpoles, banner poles, and electronic signboards shall be used for the expression of speech by the town only. By order of the select board or the select board's designee, the following other speech symbols may be displayed on ceremonial speech centers as an expression of the town's official sentiments. In accordance with a proclamation of the President of the United States or the Governor of the Commonwealth in recognition of governments and or territories recognized by the United States, in honor of, in conjunction with, or as part of the official town ceremonies, events, or special occasions, the town shall acquire ownership of all speech symbols that it displays on ceremonial speech centers. Just a point that was brought up to me actually by our town clerk. The parks, the town parks are actually under the jurisdiction of the park commissioners, since they are elected officials. And Laura, I would just ask you, once we adopt this, if you could please send this to the park commissioners and ask them to consider it and also adopt this for the town parks. And a good example of that is at the Founder's Park. There is a board there where there's public displays that are made that would come under this this Town of Mendon Speech Center policy, but it really is under the purview of the Parks Department. So it would be just some good housekeeping to have them adopt the same one. And then further, I would ask you, Laura, to just have this posted on the website so that people could access it. So that if anybody asks, we can send them to the webpage and they can see it there. So with that, I guess I would, unless there's anything else that council suggests that we cover, I'd be looking for a motion to move to adopt the Town of Mendon Flagpole Speech Center policy. So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, if I can ask you all to sign this. And just pass it on to the admin and we'll. I think we're ready to talk about the budget. Finance Director wants to come up, join us, or if she would come and join us. know there's been an awful lot of work that's been put in both for this capital planning ad hoc advisory committee and then the budget itself, but I guess, why don't we talk, Mike, why don't we talk about the capital outlay and the capital priority list and what the committee you've been heading up has done first.
Okay. Okay, so, by way of quick update, run through a few slides and you know. So one working group is in some verbal update. This is really just a progress update on the work that's been done. I think we made some good progress. To start, we're going to go through the objectives the working group agreed to, revisit the framework phases that Jody walked us through originally to see how that all breaks down across from a responsibility standpoint, and then jump into the progress to date. So great. Real quick, working group members. I overlooked this earlier. I didn't think I should do this, but as you can see, David, Jody, Mike, myself, Adam Griffin from FinCom, Dan Byer, and Phil Sipley are all active participants and have given a lot of time and great feedback as we've gone through this process. So thank you to all of you. Our objectives as a group really was to support the finance team in developing the framework and the content for a 5-year plan. Basically, taking Jody's direction and just executing against those same phases she walked us through earlier. We also agreed that we wanted to drill down to FY25 specifically so we can roll this into the ongoing budget process. As going forward, this will be just a standing step or process for a capital investment committee to follow each and every year. So we've identified recommendations, collected them, talked to people about them. We've identified current funding sources, available balances, and with a look towards this budget cycle. Post ATM, we also plan on delivering policy and procedures, artifacts, so that when the committee is formed, they've actually got a good foundation to execute going forward. The last point is we're not just looking at town, we will overlay school capital needs. I've got Mendon Upton's 5-year plan, so we'll start to look at that, see how that impacts some of the decisions we need to make. I'll stop there. Any questions on what I'm going through at 80,000 miles an hour?
You're doing fine.
All right. Wish you could speed it up a little. All right.
And real quick, you've seen these phases 1 to 3. Asset inventory, that was the form David created with Jason and distributed. We've collected that information. So first draft of all the assets we need to keep an eye on is done. We'll look at that. Phase 2, determining status of ongoing projects. We've identified 2 that are in progress. We feel more will come out of the woodwork as we move forward. That's still a work in progress. Jody and team assessing the financial capacity. You'll see some of the output from that work, and that's an ongoing effort to make sure that we are fiscally sound in terms of how we go about executing our capital plan. So the group itself really focuses on 4 and 5, and that's literally compiling all the requests and going through process prioritization, understanding what we think we can do, purely in a recommendation to both this board and FinCom. Ultimately, the process and the framework allow this board and FinCom to decide at the direction of probably the finance team of which sources should be expended first, et cetera. So as we get into details in this presentation, it's all illustrative. It's real requests, but how some of these monies and sources were identified were just sort of to give you a sense of how it's going to work. And then developing a CIP financing plan. Long-term, this has to be funded perpetually, ongoing. We haven't been really good at that. So as you start to look at the asks and the size and things like that, figuring out how we start to build more of this into our operating budget and figure out how we use some of the tools at our disposal to continue to feed capital investment is going to be a big takeaway, and that'll probably be post ATM. So what I'm going to do now is jump to
I just asked how much do you guys have into this already?
how we've met, I think 4 times.
4 or 5, right?
Yeah, I think we
It's
start.
been ongoing since I would say, mid-November.
Alright, so you've been chewing on it for a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, from start to finish, I think it's been very aggressive with the amount of work that we've gotten done in this, in a short amount of time. Typically carving out a capital plan is a 4 to 6 month process just to kind of carve it out, create policies around it. Never mind to actually start to garner information and start to parse it. And I feel like the team's done a great job. Mike's done a lot of the, some of the things behind the scenes. So I think that we're in a good spot, but we've
Yeah.
been working on it for a bit.
next year's cycle should probably start August.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think the
sure.
big
July,
scheme is
yeah.
it's an,
Yeah,
it's an
ongoing.
ongoing.
But
Right.
the nice thing about this is, like we said, we can kind of dust it off and do a prudent review as opposed to a build.
Yeah, I just wanted to, Chief, do you want to join us up here? Because I know you're here for budget issues and you probably have 1 or 2 capital requests.
We're
Maybe, right?
We're definitely going to touch on a request from the chief as well as one from highway as we get into
And
this.
Phil, if you, both, what, Jen, why don't you both come on up? You can come up too, Jen, if you like. You're fine, okay, as long as, I didn't want you to feel lonely out there, but. Yeah.
So, once again, this is intended for, sorry about the blow up there. This is intended for, 270% is probably not ideal. So what we've done here, we've collected all the inventory and we've broken down into an equipment tab, a fleet tab, as you start to come across here. And this is literally across all departments. So you'll see fire, highway, police, and what you'd expect. And then facilities, this was a little bit different in the sense that this incorporates all town-owned land. And what we tried to focus on is those parcels that pretty much had buildings. So if you start thinking about facilities management and things of that nature, this is where you start to see how that starts to break down. And so these 3 tabs are really ongoing. This is to capture what we have, what we need to keep an eye on. But from the same data, we then pulled out actual requests. And we broke that down into those that are going to be FY25 to 29, because that is the 5-year plan. And then those that were greater than 30 or 2030. So if you look at this, you've got them library, parks, highway. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on the detail here because it is summarized on a different tab. But the idea is that every year, we now know what a projection looks like potentially. This is a living document. So as we go forward, we've identified additional things that have come up and we add them as we go. But ultimately, all of that information then rolls into this. And this is one of the artifacts that Jody shared with us in the original presentation. It starts to give you more of not only the capital budget, which is FY25, which is column E on the left, but it also gives you an idea of some of the outliers over the next 4 to 5 years that are coming at us. But the one thing I'd say here is everything that's FY25 right now is an actual request. The cost is an estimate provided by the requester saying this is what we think it's going to cost. So this is real information that actually should probably be discussed and rolled into the budget process
budget,
as we go forward.
Right.
And I just wanted to jump, I skipped the prioritization, which we'll get back to because we did go through a prioritization process we wanted to share. But the 2 highlighted items here are actual real requests. One is the Rescue 1 replacement, row number 10, and the other is a hot box replacement. So John, I'm going to speak for you on this one because we're leasing a hot box today. we've got a 3-month lease. We're in month number 2, so we probably need to make a decision in order to allow us to get, possibly get credit for our lease
Yes.
towards the price of the hot box.
And another piece to that is that we had put in a claim.
Right.
For the existing hot box. And it was, not replacement cost, but actual cash value. So that number, I'm assuming, would come off of this 45K. Or is this the net?
No, that's the cost of, I'll defer to John if he wants to jump on. I believe that's the cost of buying it, total cost. And then if we any reductions from either insurance or from lease to buy option.
So John Dudley, do you have any updated information from our insurance carrier about the hot box and the cost?
As of right now, I do not have any update from the insurance company as far as the cost for the hot box, but that price is for a new hot box. So if we get a check for, say, 15,000 for the hot box, we take it off of that.
Okay.
And John, when we spoke as well, the insurance company will cover the $3,000 rental for 3 months, as you said, Mike. So that's approximately 9,000.
And that comes off of this.
So they'll actually
pay out on the total.
They
so-
will cover up to $10,000 for rentals, and I'm going to confirm with the hotbox company tomorrow to make sure that that is still an option, that we can take this rental money that we've been putting towards this hotbox and put it towards a new one.
So before we get too deep, just real quick, the way this is laid out, if people take a look at it, on the right-hand side, those are real numbers in terms of the starting balance and remaining balance. The remaining balance would be if we actually execute a capital purchase, given the funding source in the right-hand column J, you'll see the reduction in terms of the amount of money, but the starting balance for these this funding, whether it be ARPA, and Jody, I combined CapEx and the land sale just to a single bucket.
In this fiscal year starting balance.
Yeah, this is current. This is as of
now,
as of
this second.
right.
as of 3 hours ago.
3 hours.
Okay, so your remaining balance column is, if we execute everything as suggested on here.
Yeah, basically down here. If you
I
look-
do have a kind of nuts and bolts question.
Mhm.
Couple of weeks ago, we had a presentation for a wrap up of, the second phase of the water study. And I saw in that document, and I'm not saying it's wrong, I don't remember, but they suggested that there was a certain amount of ARPA funds that were earmarked for that.
We deducted that.
And that's deducted out of here too.
Yeah, just
So
in case.
just in case. Well, that's great.
Good.
That was so that's accounted for.
Yep.
I actually got a call from Jack today about that because his original memory of the water study was that there was going to be a portion of ARPA funds dedicated to that. And whether the priorities have changed since then, this is going back to the prior administrator and.
Yeah, well, originally, none of the ARPA money was touched. None of the 1.8 million was touched with the idea that it would ultimately fund water and sewer. But then the discussion that the board had was that that's such a large expenditure that it, there were other more pressing needs. And although I think it was about 28K, I think, and that number's already accounted in here just in case.
Actually, I
Seventy-two.
mentioned that
Was the number.
How much was it?
72.
72?
Yeah.
Oh, that's even.
72 is in the email from the last meeting. Was the
Okay.
number I pulled out.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't.
I thought
Again-
it was actually like 50, honestly. But I do think we allocated some ARPA funds. When I saw the email, I
I
go,
believe it was 50,000.
yeah,
But they actually, as part of the second phase, they're gonna be looking for another 50,000. That came out during the meeting that we had last
Well,
week.
we had, but for some reason, I thought that we had earmarks, but then it was reduced because I think the governor reduced it by 50%.
so I mean, the good news, when you look at ARPA, we haven't allocated it all, so it's there.
Right.
And,
That's right.
and, the Rescue One replacement that we're gonna talk about, I just threw at ARPA just because it seemed like it's more of an immediate need. That's the only source we can actually expend on based on our vote, I believe, right
Mhm.
now.
That's right.
And I think hot box replacement, I threw in CapEx originally, but given talking to John, we may want to think about shifting that to ARPA as well, because it sounds like there's more.
We need to do it. It's, we have to, timing, we have to do it. That,
Right.
we have to.
You won't get the money till July 1st.
So, but the idea is this,
Right.
this artifact will allow FinCom, allow our board to understand what we're doing, and it's something that the finance team will manage. And I would expect we'll see something like this coming to us as part of the budget discussion as we kind of nail down FY25.
Exactly.
So, and I mentioned prioritization, just so it looks like this is actually the prioritization order we came up with our voting for the FY25. So the extrication tools, Jason, came up number 1. Yeah. So, and leaf vacuum was last. Once again, talking to John. John said, well, we're going to give the leaf vacuum a go this fall. They're working on it. They keep it running. So we kind of shifted since our last meeting the other day. I moved that to FY26 just in case, but it's a fluid process, and I think it's intended to be a fluid process for the folks to be able to manage between the department heads and the finance team, so that when we get this, it'll be more of a solid recommendation that both FinCom and the board can react to.
Setting expectations pretty clearly.
Yeah. So, and all the other outlier years are just me playing with numbers, so don't take
Can
it
I
seriously.
put the gray like 300 in the highways or?
Well, I've always talked about like, let's give John a chunk of ARPA, like 500,000, right? I moved it down to 300, given how some of these other things popped up, and took it away from actually senior center in the second year. But then I just grayed out 300 because I would love to say we're gonna allocate a chunk of money every year to roads.
Yeah, like that road study had recommended.
Well, yeah, well, and John and I were talking, and he's actually going to get some recommendations that does do some of that. One of his scenarios is actually less than 300. So he was happy to hear 300 when I said.
What I'd really like to see about that is there's the chapter 90 money, then the additional chapter 90 money, which they plowed into it. Based on those numbers, I'd like to see a plan.
Well, John, you can speak to the scenarios, and that buys me time to change spreadsheets while nobody's looking.
So basically what I did is I asked Beta Corporation to come up with 4 different scenarios for us. The first one would be our chapter 90 money that we have right now, which is our fiscal year 24 chapter 90, which hasn't been spent, plus the I forget the name of it, but that money you were just talking about, Mike, that puts us at about 410,000 right now, with an additional 275 coming after July 1st. So that is the first scenario for them to figure out, okay, what's the best strategy given this money? Then from there, I threw more money into it, ARPA funds. If the town decides to throw say $125,000 at the road every year, there's 4 different scenarios that they were going to break down for us and give us their recommendations on them. But the first one is including that fair share money that was just given out, as well as our chapter 90 money.
Great. How are I see that pothole season is definitely has begun. And next week, with the temperatures going up to the 50s, I'm sure it's going to accelerate.
So the crew's been out the past 3 weeks, 3 days a week, and then this week I believe they've been out twice. They will probably be out again once more this week. Just the complaints that are coming in are they don't stop.
Well, I guess then I don't have to ask you to tell people how to let you know when they have potholes. They've already found a way to get to you and let you know. Is that right?
Yes, they have.
So just want to touch on this real quick. So the way we were looking at the projects it was just discussion. We actually put together a prioritization matrix and came with some categories we thought were important to kind of objectively compare projects against other projects across departments. So this is just the matrix we used. We weighed, similar to the senior center individual, we all rated each project for FY25 against this matrix, and the weighting that's in the matrix. And we then did a sort of a common judge in one of our meetings, just to kind of go through it and make sure we all kind of came to a common place. These are really small. It's an eye test. I know, don't worry about it, but that's just a matrix read project, which led us to this, where we actually kind of had an ordinal rank as to how the different projects fell out in terms of how we felt was the most important to the town. Any questions?
I actually, it's related, but not exactly on this. And I know I was not here 2 weeks ago, but John, do you have any update on, it's interesting, Springbrook and, down on Providence Road and the overpass? Do you have any updates on cost estimates or time estimates to do with that?
I'm still working on getting numbers together for what it would cost if the highway department were to do it themselves. Mass DOT was out again yesterday doing inspections, and they're actually surprised at how well it's been holding up since we did the repairs. But their concern is the same as ours. When the next storm comes through, what are we going to be looking at? And their grant program is great, but we're looking at next year before we see any construction done if we will go through their grant program.
And did they give you any expectation if it can actually wait?
So they're going to be sending out a full report on that particular bridge. Now that's what they've deemed it, a small bridge under their register. So I should have the full report from them based on their inspections within the next 2 weeks.
And their report's gonna let you know if it's more urgent than waiting for their grant program to fund it.
Yeah.
Is there any discussion about us retroactively being paid for it through their grant program? Or is it-
So my understanding is we have to go through phase 1 first, which is the engineering, which would be this year. That there is no reimbursement for. Phase 2, which would be next year, starting May, would be the application period. We wouldn't see the work done until fall. But there is a reimbursement portion of that, so that if we started construction, say in May, and we were awarded the grant, they would reimburse construction costs.
Do we have any idea what the engineering costs are gonna be, or is that what this report is gonna lay out?
So, talking to Ty and Bond, we're probably talking somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 just for the engineering.
Okay. Thanks.
The other option we had discussed was that culvert program, but it's basically the same scenario. That you would get the engineering this year and then the following year, you'd be able to apply, and that's competitive grant.
And that culvert program that David's talking about, it would be an even longer process because it's with Department of Environmental Resources, I believe.
Yeah.
And they use the same engineers, but they use their whole process of rebuilding this as an educational piece for people all over the state to come in and see it. So it takes a lot longer than just doing the work and having it fixed.
And I'm assuming that means the road would be shut down while they did that, right?
Yeah, correct.
Anything else, John?
Don't think so. Anything else for me?
I think I'm good. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Let's talk about the ladder truck that I looked at the other day at the fire station.
So the Rescue One replacement, the 23-year-old vehicle is 2001. Put it on the replacement for this year, then it failed on us, so it's got some extensive repair work that needs to be done on it. The last estimate we got from an actual fire apparatus repair company was possibly over 100,000 to fix a probably $30,000 truck, so obviously not the best idea. We met with a committee to build out a new replacement vehicle for it, a heavy rescue. They estimated 600,000 to 700,000 to replace it, and it's gonna be at least a year, year and a half to get it. They were being conservative with that number. They said it's probably gonna end up being around 800. That same day, a used ladder truck popped up on Facebook. One of my guys sent it to me. It can be used for the same purposes as the rescue, and it can actually increase our capabilities. And it's listed for 125,000. It's a 2001 as well, but it's in very good condition. We had it at our station for almost a full week. I think they're using us to store it during a snowstorm, but we got to use it a little bit. We drove it around.
It means we can send them a bill for rent.
So we drove around town, make sure that it was the right fit for our community. And it was, it can actually serve as a engine as well as being a ladder truck. It has 500 gallons of water and a 2,000 gallon, which is an increased capability. And it also has a 100-foot ladder on it, which again, increases the capabilities. It has the potential of lowering our insurance rating, which could be good for the entire town and the community members.
Because of that extra capabilities.
The ISO rating, you get more points for a ladder company than a service company is what they call the rescue. So you get some more points. So we've been looking at ways of improving that as it is. This will help us get to that point. If we got rid of the rescue, it would reduce us to a point where we might not be able to get to that next step. So we had a third party mechanic come out, look at it. He was impressed with the condition of it being the age. There is some minor things wrong with it. We would need tires. They're 11 and 12 years old. PA states we should have replacements at 10 years. Potential of radiator needing replaced, but other than that, there's no mechanical issues. One of the things that we would make contingent of the purchase would be aerial certification testing, pump certification, and the vehicle inspection. It'd have to be complete before the deal would be finished, but there is other towns looking at it, so it would be a good idea to move quickly on this, because it's a very good product for what it is. If I were to design one today, we wouldn't see it for 3 years, and it would be over $2 million to replace, to have that exact vehicle.
How many years do you think you'll get out of this?
So I'm hoping we could get 8 to 10. It's not a long-term thing, but it would help stagger vehicle replacement. Right now, we have a 2020 engine and we're getting another one in a few months. So it's pretty close. So this would push it off a little so that we could build some capital before we would have to put money in.
And the 125 is a max number that you would expend for this?
Yeah.
What about the tires and the
So
rating?
I would work on getting the price itself down. I'd use the
Okay.
different pieces that we need to fix it as leverage, and we need some equipment put on it that the rescue doesn't have, some minor things. So I would try and work the number down, still use that 125 to purchase.
What are you looking at for tires, like 5-6 grand?
I was thinking 6 or 7. They're rather large tires.
Not-
Yeah, they're not cheap at all.
Okay.
Usually the tires, they age out, they don't wear out, right?
Yeah, there's some damage on them. They're in fairly good shape, but they're 11 and 12 years.
Oh, that's beyond,
Per
they,
FBA, they have. to
Yeah.
replace it.
yeah, right.
But you don't think cushioning the 125 makes sense?
If I could, that'd be great. I don't know what we're spending up to. If we wanted to equip it the way we should, we would probably need 15,000 for it. Because there's things that a lot of company needs versus the rescue ropes and.
So you're saying 125 is what you're going to need to purchase, replace tires and make it roadworthy.
Yeah.
And then in addition to that, you need another 15K for equipment.
I was hoping to get.
He's trying to get the price down to like 105 so he can.
Right.
That'd be.
I get it.
But we want-
So what we would, well, I think at this point, I'd be looking for a motion to approve up to 125,000 spent through opera to purchase the vehicle and see what you can, so moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so you have the money to do that and keep us posted.
And Jason, just a side note, maybe we can catch up, because one of the things, next steps for this process will be actually circling back with department heads to look at things like turnout gear. So if you look at this, we're sort of, can we spread load that over? Can we put in your operational budget, questions like that? There's things we're going to try to get to as well. So thank you.
Yes.
You want to talk hot box?
I think the issue is we have this 45K earmark, but I'm gonna guesstimate that we probably need about 20. Because between the 10,000 or 9,000 for the rental. And then based on my conversation with the claim adjuster.
Right. Well, where it's ARPA, can we agree to up to and then move it, earmark it somewhere else after the fact if it comes down to 20?
You can reallocate.
Yeah, sure, we can reallocate.
Just amend the.
Yeah, I just didn't know what John's timeframe
Yeah.
needed to be. It
Yeah,
seemed
well,
like
if your
it was-
number, if your number in here is, you know, fully loaded at 45K and we just go up to 45K for ARPA, which I'm looking after everything, we still have 119 left. So we take this 45 off of that because you have it as CapEx.
Yep.
In here. Oh, well, I see it's, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
No, I
the numbers.
understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be looking for a motion for, well, first of all, we know that we have the 9,000 anyways, right? Because we can use that for.
Yeah, up to 10.
Up to,
Yeah, I
well,
said 9, John said 10.
I know up to 10, but,
Yeah, yeah.
but insurance,
But yeah,
they said 3 months at
3 months,
3,000
sure.
month is 9,000.
Yep. So they'll reimburse that.
So what I would say is that, you know, I think the motion should be up to 36.
Did say he was gonna confirm tomorrow if that's still on the table.
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday and it's like, we think it is, but it sounds like.
Well, there's two separate things. One's the insurance payback and then one's the payment
Yeah,
towards.
it's the rental. It's the rental.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because,
The reimbursement for the rental.
That'll be a credit.
Correct.
well, yeah, because what happens is, there's no question we're gonna get the $9,000. The question is, are the Hotbox people still gonna give us that credit towards it?
So,
That, my plan for tomorrow is to reach out to Falcon Hotbox and confirm that they're going to credit us that. So if we make the decision to buy it now, we're talking $6,000 and not 9. That
Yeah,
they would
because-
they would credit towards the cost of the machine.
In actual cash value, that can be a tough one, having been an underwriter in terms of the
Well, I think that number was around 20. That's what
pretty generous.
so,
yes.
so does it make sense to just say up to 45 and let the insurance and the
Sure.
lease kind of?
Sure, I mean, make your motion.
I was ready to say, so move.
No problem.
I move we allocate $45,000 from ARPA for the up to 45,000 to purchase hot box replacement.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's unanimous. So you have up to 45, but
Don't spend it all.
we have, yeah, but seriously, if we have the rental for a third month, then, and they're gonna give us up to the rental and the insurance is gonna pay us for up to 3 months, then.
Right.
Correct.
Maximize.
That's right.
Opportunity.
That's
right.
correct. All right, anything else on the capital expenditure end of it, for the efforts?
Questions, anything?
I just
Are you
wanna,
gonna share like a read-only link with us so we can?
Can they're all loaded on the team site, so we can just add you to the folder.
Yeah.
I'd like to see.
Is it a public?
yeah, I think this is terrific.
It's very,
Very-
yeah, very helpful. Good information. A lot to take in.
It's
The
a
format.
great methodology and a great way,
Editing capabilities to some people.
right?
Yeah.
I don't need to edit. I just want to be able to look.
No, it's, I like 1-page views of things that are pretty comprehensive where you can look at it and be like, okay, I get what you're trying to
And
say.
it's concise.
Yeah, and it's concise and it gets fed from other sources and their decision point, so it's good.
Completely agree. And that very, I like the way that. So. All right. And my work as well, and it works very well.
And I'd be interested in seeing the inventory as well, like
Yeah.
I like your tab set up for.
The facilities on it, that was the eye-opening part for me when we actually started to look at how much, land and buildings are actually under the sort of the purview of,
That's sort of.
say, a facilities management department in a public works organization.
You don't
perhaps.
say.
They would handle that.
So let's move on to the budget. And again, the big issue is normally by this time of year, we've had a few department heads in to go through, their asks and their budget. And my understanding is that David, you and Jody have had some of those meetings and talked with some of those department heads, right? And have those numbers. So I guess we're looking for a status
All right, so
on
up
where you're at.
at this point, we have met with all of the department heads. Jody has taken the lead, and she's done a great job in terms of putting things together and preparing the actual working spreadsheet. We're still looking at things like staffing changes. We have assessment retirement coming up. We had this, not we, but there has been some discussion about the clerk and the inspector's office, sort of changing that position to be an office clerk in general to help out conservation and that kind of thing.
That was something that had been discussed, frankly, years ago. So it's
The only thing is that if it's a union, might have.
sure, we'd have to bargain it.
So those are all on the table. Dylan, the intermunicipal agreement, the other two towns want to elevate her to an assistant planner, which is the next step up for her in terms of her planning functionality. And that's going to be about $4,000. Also about Isabella and, upgrading her position hour-wise in terms of determination as to whether it's 30, 32, 36, 40. The Mendon Upton Regional School, we met the superintendent business manager. The assessment that they proposed was 6,000, the increase, $6,220.531, which is $222,531 over what that 50-50 thing is. We had a discussion about using the minimum.
Minimum local contribution.
Yeah, and which would bring it down somewhere in the neighborhood of, we had discussed what was it, like 118 was the final number.
Right, there's, yep.
So that's a work in progress. You're having those discussions.
Yeah, we have,
with
I guess, what's the next step of that? Because the critical piece of that is that if you don't respond to the school to buy, so not to bargain so much, but to say, hey, this is the number, then they can go forward with the assessment.
They will, if we don't get back to them with something that we can afford and they agree to, they're gonna go with the 600 number. Which,
Or do we have,
but Jay's like,
Yes.
well, I was gonna go high because we can lower it.
Right.
If you come, March 8th would be the target to sort of come back with a number. If we can,
I thought it was March 18th. All right.
I think
Yeah,
they're
that's the
putting
one.
their decks together starting on the week of March
Oh, all
8th.
right, okay.
But if we, minimum local contribution, I think if we said we could do that, they'd say yes.
Yeah.
well, have you drilled down enough that number's doable?
If I'm just looking at the school, yes. The only problem is there's, well, look, do you want to keep going with
Sure.
the rest of his
Yeah, I-
update and then I can, okay,
Okay.
then I'll,
Looking
We'll
at
circle back.
revenue,
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at the revenue source, you can give an overview of what that
Yeah.
is.
and
All right, so we still have some lines that we haven't got a final number on. We're still trying to follow up on that. I was thinking having at least an initial meeting, if you find the FinCom and the select board, early March, do a full review of what we got. And then follow up from that with all the departments. We need to set aside for the contracts.
Yes, well, we need to we need a number for that. We need to give them a number to work with. Right. And I
Well,
think,
that's all, yeah, we're part of the bargaining process, but we need to set aside for those contracts that are gonna expire as of July 1, we need to carry that money forward. On the contracts that go over July 1st, we'll have to address that at the fall town meeting. You know, if there are contracts that are still out there and
Yeah.
haven't been
well,
resolved,
normally
and you
we,
retro it.
yeah, normally we put money aside for future negotiations. So if we can earmark that and vote it at the annual,
Yeah.
then we don't have to wait for as best we can do, right?
Yeah. And I just have a quick note about the capital plan and whether that's gonna be integrated as articles or whether they're gonna be, you know, because if you move money from capital stabilization, you need an article to move it for that specific purpose, as well as any articles that haven't been considered by the capital plan that might pop up in the warrant. The warrant doesn't close until the 14th. So we, at this point, don't know if there are articles in there that are requesting money and getting a total on that. And the revenue portion is.
Well, all those articles have to go, we're the gatekeepers,
The
right?
gatekeeper is,
Right.
Laura.
Me?
Oh, gatekeeper. Yeah, so we're in the process of accepting articles. I don't believe we have a lot in at this point.
No, I don't have many.
Just that, you know, that could be something that could pop up.
Really, I mean, the most of the money articles, aside from capital, each one of those line items needs a separate article, I would think, right?
Yeah.
But CPA, CPA takes care of itself, so those
Yeah.
articles come in all the time. I can't think of many other places where we're gonna see money articles that aren't driven out of the budget process or the capital process.
All right.
But I hadn't thought about trapping their articles.
We want to talk about the revenue side?
Yeah, I'll fill in a couple of little things. So just, I'll share a couple updates on the revenue side and then a couple of other things to kind of fill in what David had already shared about on the expense side of things. So revenue wise, we're looking pretty consistent with the initial revenue projections I had given you guys about a month ago. Since we last met and spoke about it, we had some of the cherry sheet estimates of preliminary numbers that came out. I noticed within last year's estimate versus this year's numbers, I updated them a little bit to kind of be actuals from the year before instead of estimates from the year before. So that was a little tweak, but I still didn't change things to actual to FY25 estimates because it's going to change 3 more times before it's adopted. So just as a prudent, way to look at it, I made some minor changes to that. I confirmed, the CPA debt obligations and what that looked like for offsets, a reserve for overlay, reserve for articles, all that's been vetted. So I feel good there. There's a couple of little questions that are kind of go hand in hand with the budget, like the library had leveraged some of their money to support a position last year. We may be in a same position to let that get supported through those means again this year. But again, that's going to be up for discussion once we flush the rest of those things out.
It's been like 9 extra hours.
So with regards to all.
How many? 11.
So
11.
that was one of the things that came out during the budget discussion.
Yeah, so on the revenue side, I'm pretty comfortable with where we're at. On the expense side, just to kind of add some color there. The biggest driver right now that is not updated, that is still getting fleshed out, and I was out 2 days this week, that doesn't help, but salary line items is a big one because I created a brand new spreadsheet to kind of track salaries. And then to extract anyone with a contract, like an individual contract, and then bucket people into departments and unions. And that way we can kind of isolate the lump sum salaries and make sure people are in the right places. I alluded to that a couple of weeks ago when we spoke, just to make sure that everything is buttoned up. This is going to alleviate us doing lots of lined in year-end transfers at the end of the year and saying, why are we moving this to that? And so it's just another way to kind of clean things up as we go. So that's still in process. Jennifer and I are going to be meeting probably tomorrow and then potentially again early next week to flush out the rest of that. I did start working on some estimates too about contract negotiations and started estimating COLA at 0.05% intervals. So what does every 0.5% look like all the way from 0.5 to 5, right? And so by bucketing all of the salaries by department, I just created some formulas that kind of spit out, it's going to cost this much money to support this increase. So depending upon where we stand, you know, in the negotiations as they happen, we're going to be able to say, okay, well, if we say yes to that, it's going to cost us blank for that union, you know, and then we can build that into the budget. And like Mike had alluded to earlier, we do have $51,500 that was allocated for reserve for negotiations. That number fluctuates every 3 years when we bargain. So that number is partial. But the nice thing is we don't have to go from 0 to 100, where we've got a little bit of a buffer there to at least start us off. So even if it costs us $125,000 across 3 unions for increases, you know, we're partially there. So I feel good about that. The other information that we've gotten answered in the last week or so are our health and our healthcare benefits, both for retirees and active medical participants. On the active medical side, we're looking at about a 5.88% increase, which is actually still lower than the trust fund average of like 6.5%. And on the retiree side, we renewed at a 4.83% increase, which again is still a good number considering the market. So we're good there. And that's driven by obviously participation and how many retirees we have. Other renewals for medical, whether it be life insurance, those are no change renewals, meaning the premium numbers don't change. It's based on salaries. So again, once we do the salary calculation, that'll be an input on how that number might change. But as far as a premium amount, we're contracted in at no rate increases, which is a good thing. And that renews every October. So we'll be on the lookout for that. The way that I did budget for retirees, just so you guys know how that works as well, we only know about a half a year of what that premium is actually going to be because it's voted on in January through the trust. And so once that number comes out, we're able to kind of know and have an actual estimate for 6 months out of the year, but the other 6 months of the year, we aren't really sure. So I usually
What's the fluctuation?
like 2%. It could be lower than that, but around 2% is what we're looking at this year. So I've budgeted for the higher of the two, just to make sure that we're not short. And then if we have some savings on the other side, that can just stay there, and I'm comfortable with that. Let's see. So there are a couple other drivers, again, with the school.
What about Valley Tech?
So Valley Tech, I reached out to the superintendent, and he gave us a preliminary number, which looks really good, actually.
I saw his
Yeah,
email.
yeah, so that was really good. Their next meeting is on March 14th, in which we'll have some other information. I'm hesitant to change numbers down until I know that they're for sure. So I've kind of kept that level funded in there, but my note on the side says preliminary, we're looking at some savings of like $120,000, but I'm not touching it yet until we know that meeting has sort of been flushed out.
Did he mention capital in the email? Because I know there's subcommittee.
$157.
How much?
$9,557 of additional debt. It
Okay.
must be just an adjustment there, but he did not mention any specific capital.
Okay.
Not yet. I do know Mendon Upton will be looking for a roof for their school.
More than one.
Yeah, so there's gonna be some capital requests from the school district.
But that's gonna
for
be
sure.
next year.
Next year.
They're not coming with
Yep.
capital this year.
No, not this year. So we're just looking at that. As everybody knows, that we've mentioned this a bunch of times, and I think it's a good opportunity to mention it again. We had a debt roll off from the school, the MISCO repairs and the construction at Clough. That being said, we're yielding about $340,000 in debt capacity that we need to really think about for this coming fiscal year, or we're going to lose it. What I mean by that is strategically, we need to make sure that we keep our debt capacity level. And what that means is if we realize the roll off in debt, it's gonna take more to secure it again. So if we keep that steady, we don't impact the tax rate up or down. We keep that steady. And so when debt rolls off, it's a smart practice to
Replace
bring it back on. And there's a lever that we can use. It's a one-time capital exclusion, which I would highly recommend using for one of our capital needs this year. And it would be written just like that on the warrant to say, you know, we're gonna put 343 some odd $1,000 towards the purchase of a blank, or to, you know, start seed money for the senior center, you know, costs, or put towards engineer, or whatever the decisions are at that point. But that would be one that we all need to make sure that we don't let that slip.
There
through
are
the
two
cracks.
specific things I can think of. One of them really isn't a typical CapEx expense, but I know that the replacement of the police cruisers was thought to be, needed to be done at a certain rate. And we need to accelerate it
So,
because they're wearing out.
and to that, I think Dave actually put in Chief Kersey put in an increase in his, because he does his operational budget. So he's looking to tweak that like.
Yeah, so I'll
15
get into
grand.
that too. So, and that's a great point, Mike, to bring up. So as we go through these things, I'll just finish on the other couple of things that we just got information around, which were, I mentioned all the insurances. Let's see, just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Yep. Insurances, the schools, oh, that was the only other one. So there are two other things. Norfolk Aggie, I just need a head count and estimates on what that looks like, as well as the special education costs and anybody that might fall in those buckets. We had about 10 students last year. Again, we won't know until April. We don't even know till over the summer potentially.
Right.
So what we'll do is we'll look at a historical number, an anticipated number, and kind of split the difference on that. And then as far as the other insurances, our partners at Chubb and Cabot for workers' comp, unemployment, those insurances, police and fire. I talked to Dave Lamonti last week. We haven't had a chance to catch up on this yet, David, but on Friday of last week, we talked about the policy that we need to pay for this year based on last year. If you guys remember that, the $30,000 that's already on a warrant article, the police and fire unemployment insurance information went up by like $30,000. But it was budgeted at 60 last year. So we had a little bit of a deficit in that, but we worked with our relationship and they agreed that we could wait to pay the full policy in full by May of this year. So normally that policy is paid in full on the date of renewal. But like I said, we leveraged that relationship a bit and they agreed to be able to let us pay in May. So for last year.
Yeah, what's the net? Like, what does that mean?
So that basically means that we should have appropriated $30,000 extra in free cash last year to be able to pay the rest of the premium for the policy. But given gaps in offices and different
But we can
transitions.
free
Well,
cash
but the
this
rest of the,
We can
right.
handle that this year. Yep.
Okay, the rest of the issue was that free cash hadn't been certified by that time last year.
Yep.
So some of it rolled down into the next year, so.
Yeah, so that'll be squared away.
That's what I mean.
But for this upcoming budget cycle, he's getting us those numbers so that we can just.
So we can
update
build it in
those.
this year.
100%. So I don't anticipate it being, you know, a $30,000 increase, you know, but he did still say things were running hot. It's based on claims, it's based on all those things. I know that we had some things drop off through our claims history from 5 years ago. It's a 5-year rolling look. So we should be good as well. We'll have some more information, I would say early next week on that.
Pretty short.
So again, kind of come full circle on this, you know, we're going to marry the two together. So here's our revenues, here's our expenses. I'm just hesitant on doing that and showing you guys a number until the biggest pieces of the puzzle are at least partly baked. So we'll have salaries next week. We've gotten the school, we've gotten the insurances. Those are big parts of that. And then you guys will be able to have a full view of here's all the stuff we have to do. And then here's all the stuff that we might like to do. And those are the department requests and some of the things that our department heads have asked for. And that kind of leads us into, we need to you know, I don't know if it's a board decision or the chair, if you'd like to decide alongside of the FinCom chair and how we review the budget request. Certainly the document is out there for anybody to take a peek at any time. If you haven't, and you don't have the link, let me know. I can send it again. But you can start to get a flavor for what departments have asked for, so that you feel like you're prepared with some information.
You know, my concern, my only concern is, you know, the various departments heads should have the ability to address the board if they wish to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And just because of, and a lot of it honestly is because of the departure of the town administrator and the replacement of it. Would normally schedule a lot of that, and we've had our plate full. But I would just say if there are any department heads that really have a desire to sit in front of the camera, sit down in front of us, we certainly need to schedule that. We may need to think about doubling up on our meetings.
I was gonna suggest
a couple
that, I
of
think,
times.
Yeah.
in we got a small window now, so we might need to.
Right, March and April, we're gonna need to do that.
Probably
Um,
easier than the 4-hour meetings.
And just to keep my other thought on there, but I talked about the police cruisers. I know, you know, we're going to need to replace the ambulance, you know, the rescue. And, you know, in the past, the idea was, you know, we had I think a 6 or 7 year window, and we were putting aside so much every year, and I don't know if that got lost in the shuffle. But I just want to make sure that we have monies earmarked in there, wherever we put it, so that we do have the money when we need it.
In the case of like the police, so Dave put in for 3 interceptors FY 25, but he also put in an earmark to say, if you increase my operational budget, I need 1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you see 1 in the capital plan with the idea that makes them, we actually want to move more of the fleet turnover into their operational budgets as opposed to,
Right.
Because it's not a capital expense.
Yeah, it's not a one.
Consumable. Right.
so
But I think that's where these exercises are gonna come in really handy in the sense that we're gonna be able to have a full view of not just the anticipated capital needs, but also the working budget. And how can we shift and shape things in such a way that we're maintaining, as opposed to, you know, shoot, it broke, let's get a new
Yeah,
item, right? And sort of that forward thinking.
get away from the crisis management.
Totally, the forward thinking there.
just real quick,
Yeah.
the fleet is capital. And that's why you see if you, well, when you get a chance to look at one full size as opposed to just in that little screen, you'll see a funding source, which is levy. So if it's levy, it's in their operational budget. So like, we should see 3 interceptors for the police. 2 of them might be funded out of the levy line item and 1 might be coming out of, you know, ARPA. So,
Well, I only say it wasn't capital because there's no way that a police cruiser will last 20 years.
no, and when you look at this more closely, it's like expected number.
Especially when I was
4
driving
years for each cruiser. So we start to see a projection of, he gets it this year, he's gonna need 1 in 29. You know, so that's part of the exercise we're doing.
Right.
Right. Anything else about the budget process? Are we good?
The only thing I just want to I just want to clarify. So I know David had asked Michael Krieger, the chair of the FinCom, to connect with me to schedule meetings. So do you want us to put a memo out there to department heads to say that if, you know, if you would like to come before the boards and discuss your budget versus, like, how do you want to handle that?
Yeah, I think we need to, again, we know that the budget's going to be one of the articles on the warrant, so we have to worry about the closing of the warrant. But basically, between March and April, we've got 8 weeks.
Do you want to start with a meeting between the FinCom and the select board to run through things as they are, to provide some?
Well,
color
I think,
they are?
I think we do a couple of things. I think we consider doubling up our meetings in March and April. Okay, I think we need to plan to meet weekly, 4 times in March, 4 times in April. And we may even need one next week. As a matter of fact, I want to put a placeholder in there because depending on how things work with our new town administrator, we need to ultimately approve a contract. So I'd like to add one beginning next week and just, and then start weekly meetings. And then,
You were also saying that you wanted the department heads to come and let us know what's important.
well, what I was going to suggest is in conjunction with that, if you can reach out to the department head and see who who wants to get in front of us and then look at those dates and let's fill them all in.
I mean, we could meet with the department heads in parallel as the numbers being put
That-
together.
that's what I'm
They
getting
can
at.
fill,
Correct.
tell us what they want, and then we can.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we keep, there's been a lot of work that's been done to increase communication. I just want to continue it further and make sure.
So
that-
again, we'll put out a memo to department heads to say there's opportunity for you to share your budget and the things that are important to you for FY 25. And then kind of lay out the dates that we can have them participate. And are you looking for, again, joint FinCom select board meetings?
Yeah, what I would,
Past?
what I would say, one of the big differences between the way we did things before and now is, we have the SharePoint drive, we have these documents that are available online for people to review. And I think, we set our meetings and we let the FinCom know that they're welcome. And then, their chair can post meetings, based on what we set up, and they're welcome to all of them.
That's what we did tonight, actually.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what we
And
did.
if
So,
we send a memo, if, I'd almost want to, the select board would like to hear from you.
yes, well, that's,
You know,
and I've,
yeah.
I made that,
And if they feel like they don't, it's like, no, I have no ass, I'm good. That's up to them, but I.
well, Nick and Nick, thanks for hanging in with us, but as the token member from the FinCom tonight, hopefully you're actually, oh, great, I just saw it. He's unmuted, so he's listening.
Yep, I'm here.
Great.
Yep.
So what we're thinking, Nick, is that, we're going to have a meeting next week. We probably won't schedule any budget meetings with any department heads. But moving forward from there, we're going to see who wants to meet with us, and we'll have weekly updates. And you feel it's all right for the FinCom to be invited to those? And, if you want, you folks can post and then either remotely or in person here around the table, join us so we can do this jointly
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, I think that, especially with the timeline, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Great.
And I guess the only thing that I would say is that if there is a particular department that has significant variance from last year, that it's more than kind of a nice to have, that I would suggest that they need to present.
Yeah. Yeah, well, certainly it works two ways. We're going to give them the option, but based on the numbers, some of them, we may ask some of them that they, yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Right.
Plus,
Kindly.
if you do both together, you take that duplicity out.
Right.
You're not
You
having
don't have to meet twice. You have to do it twice.
them coming in here and then going to finance.
Right. And specifically, we used to have the schools come in. I'd love to be able to have a joint meeting on those nights and, that way we both get a shot at them at the same time.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right, thanks. Great. I do have a couple of ancillary questions. When we went to the MMA conference, we tried to speak with the folks at Springbrook, and they didn't happen to, I don't know if they saw me coming around the corner or if they just weren't there on Sunday, but they weren't there. We didn't able to speak with them. And I did speak with Eric, our accountant. And, initially when he made this recommendation and Springbrook made their pitch to us, everything was supposed to be, integrated and set up, and we were supposed to be well along the way. Apparently, when I spoke with Eric yesterday, and he did mention this before, the tax collection side is still being done through KVS, right? So Springbrook hasn't done what they projected they were going to be able to do. And there's another company called Vader Systems.
I know.
That's based I think in Arlington. So they're actually a mass company.
Mhm.
And some of the other towns in the area have adopted them. I'm wondering, what's the state of the contract with Springbrook? Have we already paid them? Are we in some kind of a long-term contract with them?
I believe that the contract, and don't quote me on this until I can verify, but I believe it's through 2024.
All right.
2021, we signed, and then it was a 3-year contract. But that said, there's still some siloed operations. The main driver in converting to Springbrook was, keep in mind, it was the chart of accounts.
Yeah.
And again, I walked in when this was happening.
Right.
Which I think we've done really well with getting in line with mass standards.
Mhm.
And so I think the next steps are looking at collection modules, but I will tell you that collections can be a very manual data entry type functionality. And a window point click system isn't always the best for those types of,
Yeah, be able to do some kind of a batch thing, right?
yeah, and we
Right?
do, so we've increased our collections, our online collections significantly in the last 3 years. And avoided a lot of manual processing, but there's still a lot of manual processing, even if you do lockbox services.
Mhm.
So again, I don't know that Springbrook is the best fit on the tax collection side of things. But I don't know that it's not either, because their technology has been evolving. And so I think that once we get to a place where we say, okay, we're gonna completely sunset KVS and that software, that's gonna be another migration.
Yep.
That we'll need to look at to be able to get, whatever, whatever platform makes the most sense, whether it's continuing Springbrook in the cloud or moving to another proprietary system like Vadar. Munis is a little bit big for our community, but
Right.
again, you can scale it
Expensive.
down. They don't have to have all the bells and whistles. So I mean, it would be worth a look. Even if Springbrook was an interim step, I mean, it was a $40,000 upgrade to a software system that
Sure.
was,
But to get the chart of accounts and
that
it was a good thing, but
was huge, yeah.
we're at the end of the 3 years now. I just think it's a good time to look at
That's a
this
good-
and see other,
It's definitely June. I have the contract from when I asked you for it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have that. We paid 18,602 for the annual fee, and then it was 30,885 for the professional
to
service.
give us the
For the
till June.
migration, right?
June.
So
So,
that gives us
This
till
year.
June of this year.
Yes.
Okay.
right, so.
Signed it June of the 20.
And we can always work with the account exec too, is if, because I know there's a lot of stuff going on, if we're not in a position to make a new decision about software by, in the next couple of
Yeah.
months, we would have been well into a migration by now.
Right.
But we could also look to extend the contract just for a year. Because the other things that I think need to fall in line are utility billing. That's 2 systems ago that they're still on. And so if we're looking at a solution that can bring us up to speed on the utility billing side of things, as well as collection, as well as our chart accounts that can all be on one platform, I think, maybe Jason, I know that you're driving more of the IT stuff on the working group, but that would be another consideration when we do look to upgrade those, I'll call them suites, right?
Mhm.
We can look across some of the other needs across the town and say, okay, well, if we go for Munis, yeah, it's a bigger system than we need for tax collections, but it takes into, we don't need Viewpoint or OpenGov anymore. We can pull that all over to so we'll have to just look at the needs and kind of do that assessment. But it's a
Well-
great point to bring up, Mike, because I hadn't really been thinking about
Yeah,
that.
what got me thinking about it was discussing with Eric at MMA and the idea that, because I was under the assumption that the collection side had migrated there. And then he said that, and the reason was that I wasn't wrong. That was their pitch,
Yeah, okay.
but they haven't followed through. And the reason I was
And
looking
it
for
wasn't
them.
ready, that's the
Right.
thing.
Well,
Yeah.
what he told me was, he wanted me to go there and encourage them to, start the process because they purchased the rights
Mhm.
and they said they were going to do that programming and they just didn't follow through. So the other question is, is that something they're going to do? And,
Yeah, I
when
think
is
we
it,
need to
when
get
they
a
can
meeting
they?
Together about that, because there are some things within the financial suite that we purchased that we can't implement because we don't have the collections side of things up and running. So to do bank recon, we can't do bank recon,
So we paid them to do it and they didn't give us what we needed to do it.
the whole, well, yes and no, because they sell things just like Munis does or anything else, they sell modules.
Mhm.
And so this module gives you this module gives you that, and so.
But the
if
way
you
he
have two that
explained it to
tie
me
together-
was, that the module we needed to do that
Wasn't available,
isn't available.
right? It might be now.
Well,
It might
he's,
be now,
well,
but-
as of less than a month ago.
Right, we do need to explore that
Okay.
further, for sure.
All right. Anything else on the budget?
Anyone have questions?
Right, thank you.
One question. Outstanding bogeys for the budget. As I listened, salaries is the primary that's left. Is that fair?
Yes, yep. And the only other thing would be the school, depending upon anything that changes. We have BVT, we have MURST, but we don't have Aggie yet. So that's in the hundreds of thousands, not the millions. So
Yeah, no, but you're gonna get an estimate. This is
yep,
what you have is
the
probably-
big drivers, the salaries that we can estimate.
Right.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Great job. Great job.
Security.
Right. Town administrator report.
Uh,
Is there anything left?
I haven't got anything. One, to let the board know that through HR and Jen's efforts, we are having a preventing discrimination training tomorrow at town hall for an hour or so. Probably gonna have one more department head meeting after the candidate gets the contract all together and signed. I was thinking maybe we could have him come into a department head meeting, have everybody go around the table, get a sense for who he is and what he's about, and not to upset the board, but just
No,
to,
I think it's a great
you
idea.
know, just to have, people meet him one-to-one kind of thing.
While we're, the other piece, while you're talking about meetings, and Karis, I know you're on the, I think, yeah, Karis, you're on the call. I'd like to have, I'd love to be able to schedule a meeting that talks about, if you can get it done, ethics and, proper open meeting procedures, because I think we have a lot of volunteers that are not completely clear on the concepts.
Yep.
So I'm hoping you can speak with David or the candidate once, and maybe schedule something, and we can open it up and invite everybody to come either remotely or in person to listen to what their responsibilities are. And
This is a discussion that's come up multiple times in the IT working group, so I'm really happy to hear you bring
Yeah.
that up.
Yeah, I have a regular open meeting law and public records training I do, and we are in the process of updating our ethics training. So pretty straightforward. We just have to find a date that works for everybody, and we can make that happen.
that's great. How long would it take? How long would you how much time will we budget for that? An hour, 2 hours? What?
So we usually do a 2-hour session. The open meeting law public records piece is 60 minutes and then questions, or I take questions during it. We can skip the public records and do ethics instead. So I think you should budget 2 hours for it. And then, if we get people out early, great. But it obviously will have to be a public meeting posted. But not a big deal. And I'll come to Mendon for that so that
Okay,
I can be in the room.
Can you give us just give David or Laura some times that are available, and we can put it out there, and, we're never gonna catch everybody, but we can pick what works for the largest amount of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
This be recorded so that people could have access to it in the future.
Okay, put it on YouTube.
I don't know. Well, I don't know if
Most
that's,
of our
I don't know if
meetings
that's a good idea or not. What do
yeah.
you, I guess I
Yeah.
would defer it to the
I wanna-
council.
I want to think about that. We do handouts and we provide them after the class so that people actually come. So
Yes.
that's the issue with putting it on YouTube. Well, people are like, I'll just watch it on YouTube, and they
Right.
never do.
Right.
And they do 3 other things while they're doing it, and they don't actually absorb the information. I've done, 2 sessions for some communities, 2 weeks apart. I've done one in the
Okay,
afternoon and one in the evening, if that works better for, town staff versus, board, elected and appointed board members. So why don't I put together some dates, and then David and I can talk about it, and, with or without Cody, depending on what happens, and figure that out.
that's terrific. Thank you very much
Yeah.
for that.
Of course.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your flow, but I just.
No.
No, that's fine. I have the sound on, no worries.
All right, great.
That's it.
All right. Any other topics not reasonably anticipated before we go into executive session? All right, then, I need a motion to go into executive session purpose 2, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, town administrator and finance director. And then secondly, executive session purpose 6, Mass General Law 38, Section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the public body, trust property, and I do declare that. So I would be looking for a motion for those 2 reasons.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Need a roll call vote. Morale, aye.
Brugos, aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. We're only going to return to adjourn.
You don't need to return to adjourn.
Well, then we're not going to return.
You just have to state that you're not going to return to adjourn.
Thank you, Professor. We had this conversation today. I said she should be a college professor, and she says she likes practicing law right now. Right. Here's a copy. You get the number.